Welcome to this explainer on The Great Escape. 3 pilots, 1 jail, and the missing 54. Okay, we are diving right into an absolutely unbelievable real-life story today. We're unpacking a daring prison break that, honestly, challenges everything we know about survival, ingenuity, and just sheer willpower. We're going to look at how 3 captured fighter pilots pulled off a literally impossible escape from a maximum security prison. Plus, there is a massive historical twist at the end you are not going to see coming. So let's just set the stage here.
Picture this, all right? It's the night of August 13, 1972. It is pouring rain down on the maximum security Rawalpindi jail in Pakistan. Everything seems totally normal. Guards are doing their routine patrols, prisoners are fast asleep. But inside cell number 4, something extraordinary is going down. 4 Indian fighter pilots who were taken as prisoners of war are locked in this exact cell. But here's the kicker. By the time the sun rises, 3 of them will have completely vanished. They never touched the main gates, they didn't jump out of a window, and they absolutely didn't bribe any guards.
So, that brings us to the big question. How did 3 prisoners dig their way out of a high-security prison without any tools or inside help? Seriously, if the doors are locked and the guards are literally right outside on patrol, how on earth do 3 guys break out with 0 outside help? Well, to understand the sheer brilliance of this escape, we actually need to rewind just a few months to see how these pilots even ended up in cell number 4 in the first place.
Looking at the timeline of the 1971 conflict, things kicked off on December 3, when official conflict broke out between India and Pakistan. Just a week later, on December 10, an Indian fighter pilot named Dilip Parakar was flying a mission to take out a sensitive tracking radar station east of Lahore. Now, he actually accomplished his mission, but his Sukhoi aircraft got hit and caught fire, so Parakar had to eject. He parachuted directly into enemy territory, where he was immediately grabbed by locals and handed over to the Pakistani military. Fast forward just 6 days to December 16th, and a massive ceasefire takes place, leading to the surrender of over 93,000 Pakistani soldiers and effectively ending the war. But for Parakar and a handful of other captured pilots, their battle for freedom was literally just starting.
Right after his capture, Parlikar was put through some seriously intense interrogation. Let's look at this interrogation bluff. On one hand, authorities desperately wanted him to draw a map of India's Adhampur Air Base in Punjab. It had been a huge strategic headache for them. So Parlikar is facing a terrifying choice here, right? Give up state secrets or face brutal torture. But he uses some incredibly quick thinking and, honestly, a bit of strategic humor. He agrees to draw the map, but instead of the Adhampur Air Base, he meticulously sketches out the layout of the Mumbai-Santa Cruz Airport. I mean, what a move! He successfully bought himself and the other captive pilots enough time until the war officially ended.
So, moving on to the perfect setup. Once the war ended, things at the POW camp relaxed just a tiny bit, and the pilots were allowed to mingle for a couple of hours a day. Parlikar was desperate to escape, so he recruited 2 other pilots, MS Grewal and Harish Singh. Together, they orchestrated this flawless plan. First, they convinced the guards to let them permanently shift to cell number 4. Why? Because it was the biggest cell, and had the fewest guards patrolling outside, and it was right up against the prison's outer boundary wall. But here's the absolutely crucial part. There was a 4th pilot in that cell, VS Chat. He made the ultimate sacrifice to stay behind. On the night of the escape, Chat arranged pillows and blankets on the empty beds to make it look like sleeping bodies. That brilliant move delayed the morning alarm, giving his friends a massive head start.
Okay, but tunneling with nothing? How do you actually break through a solid brick prison wall? Step 1, they intentionally grew out their beards for weeks. Why? Just to have a legitimate excuse to ask the guards for scissors. Then, step 2, they used those scissors, along with stolen spoons and forks from their meals, to literally chip away at the aging bricks of the cell's back wall. Every single night. Step 3, to hide all that debris, they stuffed the crushed bricks into old courier boxes and buried them under trash. And finally, step 4, they strategically dug the hole right under a bed. Every morning, before the guards did their checks, they perfectly reconstructed those loose bricks so absolutely nothing looked out of place. It was a total masterclass in deception.
After a month and a half of this painstaking digging, they had to figure out their escape route. Where do you go once you break out? The obvious choices, you might think, would be heading east, straight toward the Indian border. But, well, that's exactly what the prison guards would be expecting, right? Plus, going to India meant crossing these heavily guarded checkpoints and swimming across rivers, which was a huge problem because pilot Harish Singh couldn't swim.
So they went with a genius misdirection. They decided to head west, toward the Afghan border. It was completely unexpected, and if they could just cross into Afghanistan, they'd have legal immunity from Pakistani authorities.
But we've got to talk about their escape preparations, because they didn't just dig a hole and make a run for it. They prepped meticulously. First, they actually dropped a fake map in the prison showing a route toward India just to totally mislead the guards. They also needed a real map to navigate to Afghanistan, so Parulkar smoothly tricked the camp commandant into handing over an atlas, pretending he was planning a fake trip to the upcoming Summer Olympics. I mean, the nerve. They also used their small Geneva Convention allowance to stockpile dry fruits and condensed milk for the road. They even smooth-talked the prison tailor into sewing them local Patani suits so they could blend right in with the local population.
Then comes the night of August 13. Taking advantage of a skeleton crew of guards who were out for an upcoming holiday, they pushed out that final layer of plaster and slipped out into the heavy rain. The second they stepped out, they took on their new aliases. Dilip Parulkar became Philip Peter, M.S. Grewal became Ali Amir, and Harish Singh became John Jacob. Just like that, they shed their old identities, walked right up to the Rawalpindi bus stand, caught a bus to Peshawar, and began this incredible journey to freedom.
They made it all the way to Landi Ghatal, which is just a few kilometers from the Afghan border. They were agonizingly close. But here is where a fatal error at the border tripped them up. See, they needed to get to a railway station called Landi Khana for the final leg. But what their map didn't show them was that the Landi Khana station was actually a British-era relic that had been permanently closed since 1932. So while they're trying to hire a local taxi to figure out a new route, they had to negotiate in Urdu. Their broken, kind of unnatural accents immediately raised huge red flags for the locals and the taxi driver.
A crowd starts gathering, and soon enough, the local police show up, demanding to know who these guys are. And Dilip Parulkar, staring the police down, delivers one final, audacious bluff. He says, "We are Pakistani Air Force members on vacation." He was banking entirely on his confidence. But the locals just weren't buying it. The three men were detained on the spot and thrown into a local holding cell. So let's look at the recapture and return. The police searched them and actually found their POW ID cards, but thankfully, they couldn't read the English well enough to realize who they were really dealing with. Parulkar knew that if their true identities got out, they might be shot by angry locals, so he aggressively demanded the police call the Rawalpindi camp commandant. Pretending to be this furious Pakistani airman, Parulkar just starts shouting into the phone. The commandant instantly recognized his voice. He ordered the police to hold them safely until military escorts could arrive. So they were given 30 days of solitary confinement, but the amazing thing is, they survived. They were officially repatriated in December 1972 through the Wagah border.
Okay, let's just pause here for a second. This is a thrilling story, absolutely. But it begs a massive question. Why risk everything on a dangerous escape if a diplomatic release was already in progress? Think about it. By July 1972, the Simla Agreement had been signed. Diplomatic talks were happening. They were almost certainly going to be released eventually. So why dig through a wall with a spoon and risk getting shot in the back? Well, the answer to that question actually reveals the incredibly dark, sobering reality of this conflict.
The answer lies in one single, incredibly heavy number: 54. We are talking about the Forgotten 54. According to the source material, there are 54 Indian soldiers officially listed as missing in action from the 1971 war who simply never returned home. Now, to be clear and impartial here, officially, Pakistani authorities have continually denied holding any remaining prisoners, stating all POWs were released. However, historical records and the sources highlight several documented anomalies. For instance, Major A.K. Ghosh was actually photographed as a captive in Time magazine after the war, yet he never returned. In 1989, the uncle of Flight Lieutenant V.V. Tambayam reported seeing his nephew alive in a Faisalabad jail. And on top of that, a 1979 BBC article noted an asylum ward allegedly housing around 50 Indian POWs. For decades, families and officials have cited these very specific instances, seeking answers that sadly have just never fully materialized.
And this brings us to our final, frankly haunting thought for this explainer. Parulkar, Grewal, and Singh, they didn't trust the slow wheels of diplomacy. They knew that in the absolute chaos of post-war bureaucracy, people can simply disappear. Their escape wasn't just some adventurous thrill ride. It was a highly calculated, desperate bid for survival, based on a very real fear. It leaves us with a powerful question. If they hadn't grabbed those spoons and scissors and broken out of cell number 4 that rainy night, would Dilip Parulkar, M.S. Grewal, and Harish Singh just be 3 more names on the list of the Forgotten 54?